Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Kim Asun. I am born and raised in Hawaii, same town as Josh. I was born and raised in Kaneohe. I now live in Ewa Beach, which is on the other side of the community. I have been in education. This is 35 years this year makes. So lots of experience in public school for 23 years. And then I went to a public charter school for I think in 2000 and I started in 1990, 2015, I think I went to one of the largest charter school in Hawaii. Stayed there for 6 years. I was a coach and a elementary director past the pandemic. And then in the last 3 years, this is my third year at Wailai as an instructional coach and a curriculum coordinator. So I spent about more than half of the 35 years in the classroom, elementary, third, fourth, fifth grade. And then the last part of my years have been as an instructional coach, curriculum coordinator, and also an elementary director. So that's just kind of me in a nutshell. And I have more years to go. I do want to retire. That's my goal, but I don't think I'm done yet. I just got my master's last year with Spalding University as learner-centered. I don't know what the whole title is. I just got my master's and I'm super proud. Didn't think I could do it. So I am want to use that. So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. I was really trying hard
Oh,
to not
wait,
have.
and just a second. I forgot to roll the recording. So you
Oh,
don't have
that's
to
fine. I
introduce your.
did.
You have it, Josh?
I believe it's recording. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
The recording?
Yep, we're recording.
Good. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, I probably should have shown my screen instead of talking so much. Anyway, so what I want to talk about today is actually came about with my podcast with Josh. And we were talking about what was that 30,000? What was the question, Josh? The 30,000?
It was a hot air balloon, 30,000 foot
Yeah.
question about what you were thinking about, the big meta question on your
Yeah.
mind.
And so my meta question was, how do I actually, it was really a me thing. How do I continue to work in the environment in schools when there's so many generations? And I really, really, really extremely struggled as an administrator during the pandemic on this topic. So it kind of took me down this rabbit hole. As you can see, I go down a lot of rabbit holes. And I don't think at the end I'll have any answers. I will not have any answers. I'll have some tips, but I don't have any answers. And I think collectively we could probably come up with more tips and strategies that we could working in these school settings with multi-generation. So I'm going to start with a story. And I know this kind of looks like an odd story. This is kind of part of my ohana. And some of you might be thinking, why does she have a toilet in there? So I'll explain that. So last year in September, my daughter, who's on the bottom with her fiance and my granddaughter, were pregnant again and we're going to give birth to another child. And so at the time they had just moved out, we were in a multi-generational home, meaning that in Hawaii, it's so expensive. I have a very small 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, but I had another family living in one room, my daughter living in her room with her family. But they had moved out and the goal was when she goes into labor, she's going to drop off the dog, which is the reason why I have the dog in there, Kalea. She was supposed to drop off the dog and then she was going to go to the hospital. Her fiance's mom was going to pick up my granddaughter, Kahalelehua, and take her, and then they were going to go give birth. So cool. So at 1:30 in the morning, I get a call. She's like, Mom, it's going to happen. I said, okay, cool. Come right on over. Had it all planned out. She got to the house and she says, I have to use the bathroom. I'm like, okay. So I was trying to keep my granddaughter calm because she knew this was happening. And she came back to the car and she tried to get in the car and she's like, I don't think I'm going to make it. My water bag broke. So I said, okay, well, I think we're going to have a baby soon. And she's like arguing with me. She's like, no, Mom, I'm going to go to the hospital. I'm like, I'm going to probably swear in here, which I shouldn't. But I said, get your ass in the house, call 911, told her boyfriend, call 911, we're going to have a child. And so she kept arguing with me. I said, I'm not taking any arguments. Get your butt in the house. Go. Whatever you do not sit on the toilet. So she comes back inside. She's like, I got to take a beep, beep, beep. And I was like, you're having a baby. This is happening right now. Whatever you do not sit on that toilet. So she ran in there, sat on the toilet, didn't listen. And I said, get off that toilet. So I'm on the 911. I got this screenshot. I don't know how. Her fiance was on 911 as well. She's screaming. My granddaughter's screaming. The dog is running around. It was like complete chaos. So my boyfriend got there. He's trying to calm the baby. My son, who's standing there, just got home from work and he's spinning in circles because he just woke up from this dead sleep. And she screamed and the baby literally flew out in my arms. I'm not exaggerating. It was like a water burst open, like a water balloon shot out. Everything was all over me in my pajamas, and this child was born, and it wasn't breathing. So I didn't know what to do. I'm thinking about Grey's Anatomy. Honestly, I'm thinking about TV shows. Like, what do I do? All they do is slap the baby. So I was hitting the baby really, really hard on the back. My daughter's worried. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't have nothing to, squeeze out, suck out the nose. So she's yelling at me. She's like, is she breathing? Is she breathing? I was like, I don't know if she's breathing. So I just kept hitting her. And so in the meantime, 911 screaming at me, but I can't hear anything. So I get my finger and I sweep out her mouth, and then she starts sucking on my finger. So, okay, she's breathing. So the lady, finally, everybody's kind of calmed down. We know she's breathing. We grab the towels, wrap her up. And they said, okay, now you need to tie her umbilical cord. I'm like, with what? I have nothing. We're on a dirty bathroom floor. So she says, find the nearest shoelace you can. So her fiance goes out, finds the cleanest one, which isn't clean in Ever Beach. It's very dirty. And so that red little cord there is a shoelace. So we tied the shoelace. Everything came out fine. Luckily, baby was healthy. She had a bruise on her head, I think, from shooting out so fast. My daughter thinks I dropped her, but I did not drop her. I know that for sure. But why does this matter? Because there were many generations, even a dog, that needed to communicate in a crisis. And had she just sat there and argued with me because, she wanted to do it her way, they would have had it on the road, and I'm sure it would not have had a good outcome, So anyway, I know this is a long story, probably something that's TMI, but I bring this up because when I think about generational gaps, especially during crisis, this is when we all need to work together for a common good. So that's my story about my one and only story that I actually delivered my granddaughter. And she's very healthy. She's almost 2, and her name is Kealaula. So anyway, that's my story. So who's in the schoolhouse? I want you to think about, like, who are some of the people in your schoolhouse or in your schools that you currently have. And so if you think about the generations, you have the silent generation. Anybody a part of the silent generation, 1928 to 1945? No?
I was going to raise my hand, but no, I'm
Okay.
not.
So these people, if they are there, they're often retired, but might be like substitute teachers or volunteers or board members. We do have a teacher here. I think that's, Mel might know, that's still there, right? And then we have the boomers. Anybody a boomer? Yeah, I'm almost a boomer, but not quite. So those are usually your teachers, your staff, your administrators, your EAs, right? And then I'm a Gen X. Anybody else a Gen X? Yep. And then we have millennials, which is probably my first son, who's 35, right? So I have a bunch of kids in the millennials. Actually, no, not really. Gen Z, 1990. He was born in 1990. So I have 1990, 1994. I have a 2000. So if you just think about it, Gen Alpha are students, right? That's who's currently in our, especially in elementary. And do you know that this year is our future student? Sorry, I spelled it wrong, but that's our beta. So these are the kids that are coming up. So if you really think about it, what other workplace do you think about that has this many generations in a workplace? Not very many that you have to work with day in and day out. Not just I'm going to a doctor visit, right? This is like 6 hours a day. So what this leads to me is like, there's so many problems, I feel like, that come between communication with all the generations. And I just think about being a parent. At first I think it was a parent thing, but I think it's both. I think it's how you're raised. So a cultural thing, your culture, I think a lot has to do with it. But I also think about like, how do we work together and continue to thrive in a place and not survive in a school setting, knowing that our focus is on our Gen Alpha and our soon our betas. In another 5 years, they'll be in our school. So that's just kind of giving you a background. So thinking about it, I was thinking about what are some of the communication styles. And it was funny, I did this other short podcast recently with one of our teachers here, and she was talking about literacy. And we were talking about texting. So we were talking about how my generation, we write a whole paragraph. Like when my kids text me, I'm like, and my kids are like, K, right? That's it. Or an emoji, right? And I think it's funny because when I text back an emoji or K, then they think I'm mad. So I just feel like I can't win. And I'm sure some of you feel the same way. So thinking about in the schools, if you just look at this chart, right? Emails, I don't think existed when I first started teaching. And I don't know if some of you are the same way. Like emails didn't exist. We had conversations face to face and we battled it out or we shut up. It was one or the other, right? And then I also think about growing up, especially in Hawaii and a cultural thing, because my father is Japanese, like we weren't allowed to talk, right? You listened, and only when you were spoken to, you answered. Same thing in school, right? And now it's so different, right? Everybody wants to say in everything. Everybody got an opinion. So like, how do we bridge this communication along with our values and respect all these different generations? So I just want you to kind of just get an overview of like what kind of tech use they have. And I think the part that really kind of really surprises me is the workplace values. And I'm going to kind of go into this as I go on about my story. But if you really think about workplace values, I think this is where a lot of judgment takes place, because I value, right? Um, I value experience and teamwork, but I also value loyalty and hard work because that's where my parents came from. And that's what they told me. Like, you work hard, you stay loyal. I mean, most people in Hawaii and in traditional public schools stay there forever. We become the dinosaur teachers. We don't move. So and I say that like with a little like pun, because I consider myself a dinosaur teacher. Because I've been here for so long, but that's what I think traditional public schools look for: loyalty and hard work, right? But charter schools have a different lens, right? We're looking for teamwork and work-life balance with these new people, and what is our purpose and what is the growth, so, and the impact that we're going to have. So I think even schools have changed along with these generations. And I think, unfortunately, we all know that since we're all here with this community, that a lot of us are stuck in this boomers generation, right? So we need to change as well. Anybody got questions, sorry, or want to add anything to this? I don't want to like feel like I'm talking at anybody, but like any ahas or.
So yes, Kim, this
Yeah.
subject is so fascinating. I'm already thinking about things I have not ever thought about, especially these two slides. The previous, like the list of generations, and then this grid here and the different value systems, communications, all that. Anyway, just keep going because this is so
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah.
I was thinking about my granddaughter,
Yeah.
she's Gen Alpha, and she could take my phone, take a picture. She's 4, 3, even the one that was just born, she scrolls. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like, how do they figure that out, right? But that's just they're digital native people. That's what
Yeah.
they do. So it's interesting how can we not change how we teach or how we run schools? Like, how can we not? That's more of my question. Why not? So here's some of the things that I think about. Like, it's about friction and frustration. This was me. This is my experience. communication breakdown. Like I said, I rather have a face-to-face conversation than write an email. And I just got through, I was telling them that we're going through the interviews of our head of school, and, you know, communication, we were doing certain things, I think, that were high confidential and needed to be done in a face-to-face conversation, but we were doing it through email, and then the tones and everything got thrown off, and I had to apologize because I felt like I was coming off wrong. It wasn't my intent, but I guess the way I communicated wasn't being received to a younger generation. So I had to apologize. But I feel like those things, right? The communication breaks down, the gaps, right? The younger staff rapidly adopts technology a lot easier than some of our teachers that resist it more. And then just our priorities. As a coach, I was flabbergasted my first year here, and I was like, how come these teachers leave at 2:15? Like, what? How can you leave right after school? Like, in my mind, that was just like, oh, you know, but it, I started to put judgment on it, but then I had to, you know, take a step back and be like, why am I judging it? They may be able to get their work done, but when I started being like, have you opened the teacher's guide? Didn't even know what a teacher's guide was, right? They just wanted me to give them a video of how to teach this curriculum. And I'm like, that's not possible. But, you know, so work ethic and priorities, that's still something that I struggle with. You know, the expectations of pay your dues. Like I think like, yeah, you got to pay your dues. And other people are like, nah, peace out after 2 years. I'll go find another place that I can just, you know, punch in and punch out. I don't know. That's just how it is nowadays. And then classroom management styles, right? The authoritative versus the relational approach can also cause friction. And then you put the parents in it, because the parents come from another generation as well. So there's just so, I don't know. I feel like there's just so much to it, but like, how do we take all these generations and like put it for the better of the good of people, you know? So as a coach, I was trying to think of like, what am I doing currently, you know, as how can I do this? So like during the pandemic, while I served as a elementary director, I made decisions. I think I'm on the wrong side, sorry. Let me go back to this. As an instructional coach, I sit in a unique like crossroad. I'm kind of the bridge between the admin and the teachers, and sometimes teacher to teacher that are in different generations, like the new teachers, first year teachers that come in, and then the veteran teachers, right? So I kind of feel like I'm that bridge that gets walked on, and it kind of goes like this and it goes like this. It just kind of depends. Sometimes it's like this, right? So honoring the coaching the veteran teachers requires a lot of humility, because I really have to tiptoe around what I say, how I say it, and to really know that they're respected for their experience, right? And then I have my brand new teachers who are like, most of them are super zealous, but they need lots of feedback and flexibility and require a lot of your time, right? And then also, you know, it's all about listening. That's really what it comes down to, is listening, because I have to be able to adapt and flex according to who I'm talking to, according to their culture, according to where they are in experience, according to what generation they come from, right? So I have to make sure that my coaching approach is going to be adaptable for all. And I think the coaches are what connects the administration with this diverse age group. And I think instructional coaches are, like I said, that bridge that helps the divide. So we can translate and be empathetic and facilitate and not dictate. And in many ways, we become the culture carriers who help the multi-generationals like connect together. So that's just kind of how I feel with instructional coaching and how I can bridge the generations together. So my aha light bulb moment. During the pandemic, I was fortunate that I had a job and I became the elementary director. And as everyone knows, the pandemic already caused a lot of stress. And so I made decisions with best intentions. And one of my big decisions was changing a schedule. And if y'all know, people do not like schedule changes. I didn't know that. I thought it was like going to be the greatest thing ever. But the transition coming back from in-person to back to in-person, I think was the schedule change. And so the response I got from my teachers were very, very strong. They felt very disrespected and they felt very excluded. And I could not understand why. Like, you know, my strength, I feel, is empathy. And I'm like the type of leader where I'm a servant. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make your job easier. I'm going to clean the bathrooms. I'm going to run off papers. I'm going to teach your classrooms during the pandemic. I took over classes for 6 weeks when they didn't want to come in. Like, I felt like I was being this role model of like what a good leader is. So I felt like when I asked you to come back, I didn't think there was a big deal about it, but it was a big deal. And so I was looked at, I was in this meeting, no joke, on Zoom, and the executive director was in there. And in front of everybody, we were having a heated discussion about why they were upset. And my executive director said, "Girl, fix your face." She told me that. And I was just like floored. I was like, she just did not do that in front of everybody on Zoom. So we got off of Zoom. I held myself together and I talked to her later and I said, you know, I really didn't appreciate you saying that in front of everybody. If my eyes or my face was saying something, you could have chatted me. There's other ways you could have communicated that, but like that was very embarrassing. But it made me actually reflect because I can't see my face on Zoom. I don't realize what I'm portraying. So it was a big reflection and a humbling piece, even though I didn't like the way she did it. I think it was important to my growth. And so for me, I went home and every day I would grumble to my boyfriend. I'm like, I just don't understand. Why can't they just suck it up and come to work and work hard and just do it? And he's looked at me and he's like, you keep saying the same thing over and over. And every day I'm telling you the same thing. You're going to be disappointed because no one is going to reach your expectation of work ethic because you're come from a different generation. And I was just like, you're right.
Wow.
You know, so that was like my light bulb moment that I was like, he's like, you're about compliance and endurance and doing what it takes to make it work. They're not. They care more about their work-life balance and their own family. I mean, because I always put my work above my family, which is not a great thing, but that's just the way I was raised, right? So, but it just hit my blind spot. So I feel like being that was my pivotive moment, I think I talked to Josh about this. It really came down to understanding and really realizing that I had to stop putting judgment and expectations on people because of what I thought it was supposed to be. So I really had to really think about like, how can I now, after I left the position, and went back, came to YLI, it really gave me a time to really reflect and like, I thought I was being the best leader I could be. And I think I was, but I didn't realize that my blind spot was not understanding the generations of teachers that I was working with. And that how I communicated was not how they communicate. So I really had to learn how to change my way, even though I thought I was a listening leader, in their eyes, I wasn't. So it just kind of like, it's that personal pain that you have to go through in order to grow. But I think I've grown from it. Would I go back into a leadership position like that? No, not to me at my time in life. It's not worth my time, for my family and my health. So I think, you know, everything happens for a reason. And I think in every crisis comes something beautiful from it. And I think the beauty for me was learning not to put judgment on other people because I didn't feel that people weren't living up to my expectations. So that really was kind of does anybody have like something similar, like feel that way? I don't know, with like expectations of other people or in your roles that you have?
Yeah, if you want to come off mute and share, please do.
Yeah, I'll just share a little bit. Hello, my name is Juliet.
Hi.
Hi.
I had something similar in higher ed though, as an administrator for the past 4 years. And I went through several staff during COVID, and I thought it was just COVID, right? We couldn't get people with a lot of experience and what we were looking for. And I'm no longer in that leadership role, and it did not end well. And I did a lot of self-reflection, like you're talking about, and I could totally relate to what you're saying because, I think I'm Gen X, but my expectations were similar to yours, a lot of compliance, a lot of ethic, a lot of loyalty. And even though we did have one employee that was also Gen X, um, she was new to the workforce, to this specific career of higher ed. And I tell you what, these past 4 or 5 months has been a lot of self-reflection. And now I'm starting to heal, and understand some of, and just learn about myself. So thank you for sharing. I see a lot of similarity and familiarity.
So thank you for making me feel good about not feeling alone, because I really felt, like I said, I would never go back into administration, and I should never use the word never because that always comes back to haunt me. However, I do believe that my place is to lead from a different place, and being a coach, whether going back into the classroom, whatever it may be, I'm okay with. But I just feel like I don't think I have the capacity still, even with my reflection, of the skills that I need, because I still do have high expectations. I'm not gonna, my values don't change, right? So if I can get people to meet me where I'm at, then maybe I need to find a place that I think is more of a middle ground, which I think coaching is great because I can be that bridge and be understanding. But I have a son right now who just graduated. He did his student teaching at Wiley. He got a position halfway through the year because a teacher left, and just having conversations, because we carpool every day, it's been the coolest thing. But just like listening to him and what he's dealing with in the classroom now, like in my mind, I'm thinking like how I would have handled it 20 years ago, way, way different than what you can do now. So I just think it's so interesting now to see, like, to be able to share the same experience, but then like being able to see the difference on how you approach it. And like, he does take kind of like the hard school approach because that's what he was raised with me, right? Being a single mom. And he always says like, there's so much good to like the old style, but mom, you got to blend the new style too, which it is. It's both. So thank you for sharing that, Juliet.
Kim, can I,
Yeah, please do.
oh, sorry, was somebody gonna jump in or I didn't see? Oh, okay. So, wow. Okay, you got me thinking here.
Mhm.
And of course, I have the benefit of all the time that I took to dive into your life to get ready for the episode, right? And then doing the
Mhm.
interview. What you've got me thinking about is that to such an amazing extent, people in our culture operate within these generational frames. So, like,
Mhm.
if you're in college and you're playing college sports, it's going to be within largely a few years, right? So it's like age 19 to
Mhm.
23. And
Mhm.
then if you're playing pro football or pro basketball, largely you tap out after about 30, 32, somewhere around there, right? So it's this narrow frame. And as the more I think about like who's doing what where, so much of it is actually either very strict time frames or
Mhm.
or bifurcated between the older people and the younger people.
Mhm.
And and so I wonder what you think about that. I mean, I'm going back to what you said at the beginning, which is that schools have a really have a hard time acting as a team. And that's where I've landed here and thinking
Yeah.
like you could be on an NFL team and there might be 10 years worth of age difference, but you're acting as a team because you're all kind of in the same age space.
Right.
But a school is difficult to become a team because there are so many different age levels. You know where I'm
Yeah,
going with that?
totally. And it also reminds me of just like what schools could be, right? You think about the traditional approach of teaching and where we came from in our education as a learner, and now like having to unlearn and relearn. They're not, I'm gonna be honest, there's probably not a lot of people within my generation or above that are willing to do that want to do that, right? And then you have these young people who apparently, to me, some of them, I mean, I'm just saying my Hawaii frame, are not getting good education on how to teach either, right? So they're coming in with how they were raised as parents, I mean kids, right? And their parenting styles. And so like my son was saying, he's like, Mom, you don't have to have one or the other. Why can't we meet in the middle and find out what's good from here and what's good from here, and let's see if it can work with the kids that we have? Because then we forget that the kids are the ones that are our focus, right? Like even what we think may work may not even work for that generation. Their parenting skills that they're getting from their parents are way different too. And the expectations, again, goes back to expectations, right? So we still have to have high expectations, but how do we get there? How do we get there on the road coming together, right? So it's like being able to accept people's wisdom. And even like our new teachers, sometimes they feel so silenced because they're new and they're afraid to share their new ideas that they're learning in school, or that they want to do this project base, or, that's what he was telling me. He's like, our grade level didn't even go on any field trips. Like, I want to go on field trips. I want to take our kids out. And so I said, then go do it. If you want it to be done, then you go out and you go do it. And so he did. And so within the 6 months he's been there, or 4 months, sorry, he's been doing as many field trips as possible. So I don't have the answer, but I just feel like that's the only way I can see it working.
Yeah.
And understanding, right? So it's kind of like right now we need to flip the script, right? We need to like, what can we do, and maybe not have generational assumptions. I think we have characteristics, but not assume. Like, I hope that all people that know me here don't assume that I'll never change. I hope I've proven that I can change my practice. I can listen, I can unlearn, I can relearn. Like, I hope people can see that, rather than she's the old dinosaur teacher that will never change. Like, I hope that stereotype doesn't come with me, right? But instead of looking at, does older mean wiser? Not necessarily. Does younger mean greener? What if we saw everyone with the same essential strengths to offer, right? What if we came from that lens rather than stereotypes? So I think the younger educators often arrive with like the digital fluency and the bold ideas, and they want to evolve their practice. And the veteran teachers are like that institutional wisdom, right? Their seasoned pedagogy, their longstanding community trust that they may have with relationships with other people. And I think both are critical. But if we stop leading by title or tenure and start leading by our strengths and the impacts we can unlock true collaboration, right? That's where it starts. So I think this perspective doesn't just talk about equity, but it unleashes the innovation if we can do that, right? So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's great. And it feels like a great segue to what Mel just dropped into the chat. I don't know, Mel, you want to come off mute and just sort of articulate that? Because I think it's a great connection.
Yeah, I was I hope this doesn't throw off the conversation too much. Another role group that you had mentioned or hadn't mentioned yet was the parents, right? So you also have different generations trying to communicate with teachers, and I know that a lot of times it can be contentious. So I'm wondering if the lessons that you've learned have allowed you to help facilitate that communication as well between your teachers and families.
Yeah, it has. Last year, I had a group of brand new teachers. One was from a younger generation, one was from my generation. She was brand new to the thing. And it was that's what held them back, where they weren't able to communicate with the parents. They wanted to either avoid through an email. And I'm like, you need to have face-to-face conversations. People don't like emails, especially when it's a crucial conversation, because things are going to be misconstrued. The tone may change, and they ended up not being successful at our school because of it, because the type of community that we have here, they have high expectations of communication, and they want either a prompt 24-hour response, or open your door after school so we can have this conversation, which they didn't want to do. They wanted to just bag out and leave, right? Because they wanted to avoid the conflict. So yeah, that also, I think for me, I was just like, I had to have a crucial conversation with one teacher as a coach. And I said, I think you're a great teacher. You're very effective with the kids love you, but all the pieces of the puzzle are all there except one piece, and that's parent communication. And without that, you will never be a successful teacher. I'm not saying that you're a terrible teacher, because you're a great teacher, but if you don't have that component, you're not complete. So maybe you don't like to collaborate with your team. So maybe find a school where there's only one person per grade level. Maybe find an online community. Maybe go back to your teaching abroad in an Asian culture that was very traditional. Like, there's a place for you, but this place isn't for you because you don't have that piece. And it was a hard conversation to have, and it's probably not my role as a instructional coach to say that. But I also felt, I'm kind of like, my nickname is Mama Kim. Like, I feel like I love you so much. And that's what I told her. I love you so much that I want you to succeed with your strengths, but it's just not here. So if you want to be here, then you're going to need to have these crucial conversations with parents,
Mm.
you know? But, so again, going back to everyone has value, right? So what if we focused on strengths instead of our title or age? You know, our young educators could equal the innovation, right? They bring the fresh methods, the technology, the passion for change. And our veteran teachers equaled our wisdom, right? They can contribute to the history of the school. That's all I hear about at our school is the history, the YLI way, right? What is that? I'm still trying to figure that out. And then the relationship capital that you have with people, right? That's what they bring. And then if we shift the strengths to a strength-based culture, maybe moving from the age of hierarchy to a collaborative contribution reframes the team, right? So like, how can I think about professional development as well? I have been fortunate to be able to get a lot of professional development myself on like micro trainings. Sometimes we do a short 10-minute, my colleague Juna, who's also an instructional coach, we built this 19 video series that's only like 5 minutes long about coaching. And we put it in videos in a playlist so that they can just listen to it. Because like, again, our demographics has changed and not everybody wants to sit for a set 6-hour PD. They want the quick done. I listen to it, I get it. If I have questions, I'll come see you. So even professional developers change. So like I said, I think the biggest challenge is the resistance of relearning for our more veteran teachers, because a lot of them are just like, I don't want to do this over again. I just want to stick as my sail keeps going straight. I don't want no other navigational tours, right? I don't need no islands.
Kim,
Yeah.
quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the at what school could be we call them Willy Wonka golden tickets. And what we mean by that is that there are these particular ideas that
Mm-hmm.
we feel are so right in terms of reimagining teaching and learning.
Uh-huh.
One of the Willy Wonka golden tickets that we're really starting to shine a light on is teaching in teams. And I
Mm-hmm.
wonder that teaching in teams is one of the approaches to a
Mm-hmm.
multi-generational
Yes.
faculty, parent, student, admin culture, right?
Yes.
Because that's a different dynamic than teaching alone and then having, a 20-year-old brand new teacher who's sort of like a coach come into your classroom and you've been there for 30 years, right? Anyway,
Right.
what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah. We just had this conversation. We had an unconference. We have 2 young teachers that are co-teaching or team teaching, a special
Yeah.
ed teacher and they came in having the lowest, like test scores that we're looking at. And we just celebrated today because they had all kids who are either high needs or like I call red yellow. And their ESPA scores came back and they got 70% proficiency in reading. Like
Wow.
amazing. And that all had to do with a team approach of the whole 3rd grade team working together along with their RTI, along with
Right.
working with us coaches. But the power, right, of people working together for the same goal is just like, I don't
Yeah.
know, that warms my heart.
And also, Kim, in parent communications, working as a team is a whole different thing when you're communicating with the parent community, because you have this chance as a team, either
Mhm.
two people or more, to figure out like what is our approach, and then we will both be on the call, and the parent, that kind of thing too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's so many nuggets everywhere. It's just picking them out and making it work. Um, so one of the most transformative tools that we've embraced in this is our second year using it is called a platform called SIBME, SIBME. And this platform is a tech solution that allows teachers to video record their lessons, reflect on it, and then set personal goals. So it's flipped that traditional model of like how I used to go into as an instructional coach. I would go in, observe, talk to them. Here's my feedback. Why don't you try this out? Right. So now we flipped it. And so now they record themselves, or I can go in and record. And then they comment on it after they watch themselves. I see the comments, then I can comment on it. So I don't even have to be in the classroom to see the lesson, which they like sometimes because they think I make them nervous. And then we look at it together and we talk about what kind of goals do you want to make based off of this lesson? Like, what are you working on? Classroom management? Do you want to work on small groups? Whatever it is. But they're now in charge of creating their own goals on their own terms, in their own way, on their own time. And this has been super empowering because now they're starting to use it as like our third grade team all did their Socratic seminars and they all recorded it, put it in SIBME, and then they all commented on each other's Socratic seminar. And then when we met as PLCs, they all discussed like, hey, I like the way you did this. I like the way you did this. The kindergarten did the same thing with teaching a lesson in Haggerty. Like, oh, I didn't know you could add movement. So it really becomes now a collaborative tool. And so the coaching really comes from just kind of facilitating how we want to do it students, them coming to the recognition and curiosity of how can I be a better instructor for my students? But it's no longer like me putting an evaluative lens on it. It's more like they're coming up like, oh, I didn't realize that kid was rolling on the ground 5 times or jumping over the chairs 7 times. And sometimes they put the video on the kids when they're doing small groups while they're working with another small group so they can catch what's the conversation happening when they're supposed to be talking about this. So I think this SIBME has been really good because again, it's empowering teachers to have total control of their own reflection rather than me and another coach coming in to like tell them what they should maybe look at and in their practice. So that is something I think that's been really, really powerful for us. And I think that's kind of that bridge, that one of the tips I feel like is a bridge that's bridging the generations, because in the past, when somebody comes in and you see them writing or typing on their computer, you're already like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it, you're like guessing. And then now you can just bring facts because it's video. I don't have to assume anything because I can say, it also has AI. So it will tell you like teacher talk versus student talk. How many females answered to how many males answered. Your tone of your voice. It tells you how fast you spoke. And I can ask it like, hey, could you give me some tips on what are some of their strengths? It'll give me a whole summary. What are some areas they could improve on? So I use also the AI within the app to also help me coach. So that has been another way of really tailoring our coaching to meet the needs of our teachers and whether it's culturally or in their generation. So I don't know
Okay,
if I,
I'm keeping an eye on the clock because I know that
yeah,
we're coming up to
sorry.
your,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to see if any other comments or insights or questions from anybody in our audience.
I dropped it in the chat, but Kim, I want you to know that yes, the tool is important and it probably, started something new in the school, but you obviously set a very safe culture for them. So there is that piece too, and I hope you recognize it and have been recognized for it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Something's gotta change because they don't like me in the classroom. So at least if the video can be in the classroom, it's another way of feeling safe. So I appreciate that. Um, So this is the, if you're interested and you want to know more about SIVME, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to share like how powerful it's been in our school. And then just talking about AI, just because we know that, you know, that's our generation. AI is going to be part of our future generation. So we need to get comfortable with that, right? So how can we use AI to bridge our communication styles? I thought it was super cool. Over the last 2 days, we had all these interviews with the head of school, and they put in all the interview questions and the responses, and then I got to listen to it. They turned it into a podcast, and I got to re-listen to it so I could get all that. I was like, wow, that's cool. So I think that's another thing. And it just helps with efficiency, right? I could go back and listen to it and do other things while I was tending to something else. So I think grading, scheduling, we all know that AI is also going to be helping. It could cause friction, but hopefully it will reduce the frictions across generations. And then the main thing I talked about to these teachers today, I was talking about this talk, and I was like, what's really matters is that our students are watching us, right? They're watching how we model, how we work with each other, how we collaborate, how we become inclusive of each other and accepting. And so like if we don't start, I think, modeling what it's like to bridge the gap between generations, like I'm scared for the future, you know? So we really need to be, you know, what kind of things that are happening that we can model for our students to show respect for one another, because we all don't have the same perspectives and same thoughts, but how can we be inclusive within the communities that we are in, and that we can, you know, it's more than just, like I said, a lesson plan. It's more about how we interact with each other, because that's those skills that we're working on the most. And I think here is, what strengths might you be overlooking, you know, in others? Or when we feel frustrated, or I know when I feel frustrated, it's easy for me to retreat to my judgment rather than curiosity. Like, I wonder why they think that, right? My first is like, oh my God, seriously, right? Instead of like, I don't understand. Let me ask more questions so I can understand why they're thinking that way. So I think that shift is very, very small, but that's going to be important for collaboration. So
Awesome.
here's my last part, is call to reflection, right? What can we do in, you know, in our Hawaiian culture, we speak about Ike Kupuna, right? The wisdom. And how can we use the wisdom of our elders? But it's not that they're just the knowledge holders, but these people also help us connect, right? They help us mentor, and they're the keepers of perspective. So when we honor, you know, and integrate this wisdom in our schools alongside the energy of the younger generation, we can create a powerful intergenerational learning community. So I think that in the result of many generations walking together and learning from each other, we can honor that Ike by bringing the path, right? Going on the path. So I don't know, do you guys have any questions or anything you want to think about that you want to like ponder on? That was just kind of my call to reflection. Like, how can we now, or you personally in your workplace, maybe you could talk about what's one thing you think you could do differently to start building that bridge. And I'll
Juliet,
stop
you came off
sharing.
mic.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you. I think about how sometimes in our mentoring and instructional role, like those new teachers, we don't think they can be those leaders, and that as much as our learners come in as empty vessels, no, those teachers have so much, right, to give. But one of the things that I've been really interested in with our new generation of teachers is that they really make sure they have access, right, to that mental health support. And I think that's not only good for them, but for all of us. And just, you know, the collaboration and the flexibility. And I just, somebody had written in here too, is like, we seem to be like, we cut those young teachers, right? And we don't think about sometimes those strengths there. So I just want to really say I really appreciate you bringing that forth. So thank you. But
Thank you.
another thing I've been thinking about though too is like the teachers we have coming in, they're not really looking at teaching as a career anymore, right? And that's another thing that I said is
That's another
change
layer.
for me, right? Like they're coming in just kind of like a stepping stone for something, or they're coming into it later from another career in that. So it's a whole another piece of
It's-
the puzzle.
yeah. And I think it's our generation of paying the dues, right? Like I was a teacher for 20 years before I became an instructional coach, where these teachers are like, after 2 years, I want to be a coach, you know? Why not? But I don't know. Juliet?
Yeah, could you retouch again on what you said? We should be leading with our strengths and not by our title. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think with our titles, meaning like just because my title before was an elementary director, I was the principal of my elementary, like I shouldn't be leading with just because of my title I have, but I should be leading with my strengths. So like Janelle was just saying about these younger teachers, a lot of them come up to me and they go, you know, I'm in this team of teachers and they don't even want to listen to my ideas because they say I don't know anything. Like I should just listen to them. And so it's like coming from that place, like it doesn't matter. We're all teachers, we're all educators, and coming from that lens rather than a hierarchy of like, I am the leader or I'm the principal or I'm the instructional coach. Like even our educational assistants, like my brother's an EA and he has a son that's autistic, like severe. He has so much more knowledge and depth than some of the special education teachers have. And if they're willing to accept what he has to say and like what works with some of the kids that have autism, like some of them do and it really helps, but other people feel like you're just an EA. And I think if we get rid of the titles and we just respect each other's for their strengths that they bring and we find out what those strengths are, right? Because sometimes we don't even know someone's strength. So I think if we can find people's strength and bring that to the table and honor it regardless of who you are, we're all here for students and that should be our purpose.
Got it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your guys'
Thank
time. I
you.
know it's late other places, but I appreciate you. And I hope if you guys have more things to talk about or more tips and strategies, I'd be more than welcome to use them.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kim. May
Thank
the
you.
rest of your school year be happen under the rainbow that is over your head right now.
Yes. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Kim.
Okay.
Bye.